Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for coming to the Filmmakers Live. This is my bi-weekly podcast that is for filmmakers who are looking to create a career in film and who want to benefit by learning how to raise the money that they need to get those films made. My name is Joanne Butcher. I am a business coach and fundraising expert, and I am so thrilled to have my very own client, Karen Reese, as my guest today. And Karen, I know, is nervous, but you don't need to be. You don't need to be. You've been on TV. So anyway, but when I do these interviews, the reason that I love to talk to filmmakers who are moving along in their careers is because a lot of filmmakers get stuck and don't really know how to move forward. And so I like to do these interviews and let people see, you know, how you actually do it, how people actually do it. And Karen is one of those people. So Karen, so good to see you as always. The last time I saw you, we were in Miami.
Yes. Hey, you were showing me around.
And you were showing your film at the Black Police Museum. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes, amazing. So anyway, we're not going to start there. That was very recent. We're going to start way at the beginning. And my first question always is, when did you first know you were a filmmaker?
Wow. Sometimes I say I'm still learning that, but
Of
it might have
course.
been it might have been when you told me. I mean, in a clubhouse group, I was telling you about being passionate about making a film based on my uncle, and you kind of say, well, you are a person that take these films to community. You are a filmmaker. You can reach out to the community. You can share this message. I mean, and so once I got into your program, and you kind of really hone that into me that I am a filmmaker. And so it's so hard sometimes to even say it.
You know, Karen, hearing you say that just brought tears to my eyes. You know, and I tell a lot of people the story about the first time I met you in Clubhouse, you know, with Miss Tanya Kersey, who sadly has passed away.
Oh,
But oh, you didn't know that?
no.
Oh, she passed away about a year and a half ago.
Oh,
Yeah, right after she was on my podcast, actually. Um, but you know, I think that it just brings tears to my eyes because don't think of you as anything else except you're a filmmaker, and I know you do a lot of other things. But
yeah.
now, I mean, I just think of you as a filmmaker. But at the time, you had so much longing to tell these stories and not really any path to know how to do it. So that's a very interesting
Or
answer.
money.
Or money.
Right. So,
And the my memory of that first time that we met was you said, "Oh, I want to make a film about my uncle." And everybody in the group was sort of listening, and there were all these like big time producers there and everything that Tanya knew for a long time. And you know, and I'm a coach, so I know how to sort of try to help people get things out. And I said, well, you know, what does your uncle do? You know?
right.
And then finally you said basketball, and everybody was like, oh, I love basketball.
Right. Yes,
And it
yes.
was
And I didn't,
you
but I didn't think, I didn't think of that story being something that could be used to make money from. I just used it. I just was just something that I wanted to hold precious that based on my family and based on my grandmother, to be able to have a video that our kids and grandkids could go back and look at it. But I didn't look at it as far as filmmaking and money, and it continuously to bring people's stories to life. And so that's what you did for me.
Thank you so much. No, that really did bring tears to my eyes because, I never know when I meet somebody, I never know, if they can really be the person who can actually take it all the way through to the end, because I think you've probably learned now that it's hard work.
It's definitely hard work. And I'm still learning it. I'm still learning it. But it
And
hasn't taken the passion away of wanting to
uh-huh,
bring people's stories to life.
uh-huh,
And
uh-huh.
if
That's
anything, it
good.
just makes it even more passion about it. But
No, that's great. I think that also another thing that I remember when we had our first few sessions together, I remember saying, how many projects are you working on?
right. Do you remember getting that first email and it was just like, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, and just helping me just prioritize it and focus on one
Yes.
thing at a time.
Yes,
Um,
I think that's very common, Karen, because creatives even like to call themselves multi-talented. I was talking to a filmmaker today, and he's like, and I wrote it, and I directed it, and I edited it, and as if that's like a great thing,
right.
Like, no, this is a collaborative medium, But so I think you had so many ideas and so many projects, and I find this is a very common thing. And so what was fun was when we prioritized and we decided, okay, we're working on this. And I think I still could only get you down to two or maybe three
Right.
films to work on at the same time.
Right. I didn't
Like,
know how to turn that off. It was a time in
right.
my life that I
Mm,
kind of just prayed and I heard about God is always giving you ideas, and it's about you hearing those ideas and starting them. And that became one of my prayers, like, God, give me a creative idea. And it came, it just kept going. And I thought I was supposed to start them all. And so that's
mm.
how I had so many different projects, because everything he was giving me, I was starting them. But I
I
think,
remember that.
through wisdom, you learn that there's a season for everything, and not everything is for you. Some things is for you to pass on to someone else that may be more specialized in that area, that you can pass on to them to start and maybe just be an advisor with it. I mean, but that's all part of the learning, the journey of it.
Yes, and it's not as though I wanted to argue with God, but that whole thing of there are so many ideas, and the idea that I have to do them all, it can be very painful. And actually, now that we're talking about it, I remember, like, before I was a coach, right? I haven't always been a coach, and you know this, but I spent 7 years of my life in bed, too sick to work. And the pain of knowing that I was put on the planet to do something and I wasn't doing it, and I couldn't do it, and I didn't know how to do it. It was so painful. And I see that all the time. And so it could be somebody like me who's completely stopped and is in bed, or somebody like you who's got like a million things, and it's difficult to focus. But once we narrowed it down to, I think, 3 projects. How many do you think?
Right. Yeah, we got it down to three.
Three, right? We got it
Right,
down to
right,
three. Yes.
right,
And it ended up that the one that really, it ended up sort of taking the number one slot wasn't
right,
even the one that we had originally talked about,
right,
right?
right, right.
So the one we originally talked about was about your uncle, and he's in basketball. And tell us a little bit about that project.
Well, my uncle has coached for over 40 years. He comes from a little town in Arkansas, Earl, Arkansas, and he won like 6 state championships. And it's a small school, but he's been able to win. And so his inspiration came from my grandmother, who couldn't drive. She would sell chickens out of her yards to get gas money in order to go to his college game. She actually encouraged him to go to college, and he ended up playing college ball and being the first person that graduated from our family from college. And so and then he ended up needing a kidney. And so that same motivation that he needed to motivate kids to win state championship, he had to use it within himself to fight to live and to, to be able to, stay positive and believe that one day he would get a kidney. And he did get a kidney, and he ended up going to the Hall of Fame in Arkansas as a coach, as a player. And I'm like, I need to document that. That's something that represents legacy as a part of our family, part of my grandma's family. And I wanted to document, and I wanted to be able to, for him to be able to pass along to his kids, kids. Because this is during COVID. People were dying so quick, you couldn't remember
Right.
what your grandparents told you. And so you needed film to be able to capture those moments that you could always go back and see. And so that was my
Wow.
motivation.
Somebody asked what your uncle's name is.
His name is Billy Joe Murray.
Billy Joe Murray, even the name is great. And Karen, listening to you tell this story, I mean, you're such a fantastic storyteller, you know? And again, when I first met you, it was hard to get anything out of you, it was very hard. And now you can just be so on point and so clear and so precise and so crisp. And we got it totally, right? We 100% got who your uncle is and why he's so special. And it's interesting because you were saying about legacy and wanting to tell that legacy and that story and that history of your family and your grandmother as well. That's wonderful. The chickens, selling the chickens so she could go to the game. But one of the things that I've told many people now since I met you is, well, are you making this film for your cousins and your family, or is it made for a wider audience? In fact, I just got an email, Emily, you may notice this. I got an email from somebody who makes a living making films about people's legacy so that they have something on film to hand down to their families. And that's his living. He does that as a living, right? That's really cool.
That's cool.
I have a friend who does that in books. She writes family memoirs, so they have that to hand down. But I think that you always had, again, I think of that longing. I had a longing to have that story go out beyond your family, right? And how has that gone? Have you been able to achieve that?
Well, in 2021 was my grandma's birthday, and in March of 2021, and so I did a screening back in my hometown, and to be able to go back home and share that history and invite people out, I I think it kind of solidified what you were saying about legacy and community. Because when I went back home, people was like, "Oh, this is so great. This is great to do that." And I never even looked at it like that. But it just kind of shows that I had a heart for community, and it's important to share those stories that are in your backyard. Sometimes we get so broad and we see
Yes.
everything on TV, but there are some stories that are right in your backyard, your hometown, that need to be shared and recorded. And so I think it's just kind of helping me develop that path that I'm going to be on when I make the money to be able to go make the film of those legacies.
Yes. I think that, and I know this is something that I shared with you when we were talking about this question of audience, but I had this experience many years ago. So I have a friend, his name is Sergio Hiral. He's 87 years old now. He's an Afro-Cuban director, and all his films that he made in Cuba were shot on 35 millimeter. They're just beautiful, extraordinary films, and they show the history of Afro-Cubans up until 1959, when the government said no, and he defected and he came to America. And now he's in his late 80s. And when he first came to America, I was working at the college, and it was my job to be kind of the MC when we showed his films. And there were six feature-length films. And I'm used to doing this. You know me. I can talk to anybody. I can talk in front of anybody. And so the first film that we showed was it showed slaves being brought from Africa, and the people chose to kill themselves by jumping off the ship rather than be held and things like that. And I didn't understand what it was, but that night when I was supposed to MC and do a Q&A and everything, I couldn't speak.
Mm.
Now I don't know any other time in my life that I've been rendered speechless.
Wow.
And so, you know, the event was over and everybody went home. So the next day I went to see Sergio in his office and I apologized, you know, for what had happened. And as we were talking, I realized it was the first time I had seen my ancestors on screen. So I'm not of Afro-Cuban descent, I'm of Afro-Trinidadian descent, right? But that's the same thing. You know, that's the same thing. And I had never seen it, and I was speechless from seeing my history on the screen.
Yeah.
And so when you told me that you were going to be making a film about this person who is a hero to those people in Earl, a hero to the people in Arkansas, I was just like, I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, you just can't imagine when people see their own story and their own people and their own history.
Yeah.
And what did people tell you after that first screening? What did they say?
I mean, they loved it. It just so happened that day it snowed in Arkansas, but people still fought to come out and they just loved it. And it was just encouragement to me that I felt like that I was on the right track. You know, sometimes you don't know whether what you started out doing is the right thing, but it just kind of gave me affirmation that I was on the right track. It's important to share those stories. It's important. So
So the film that ended up becoming the sort of the number one priority wasn't even that film. That was not the film we had started talking about, right? So oh, by the way, is your film with your uncle finished, or are you still working on that?
well, he got inducted to another Hall of Fame at his college, University of Arkansas, Russellville, and so I need to go back and edit and add that to it, and then I wanted to add a little bit more about his journey of needing a kidney. So it needs to be edited, and it's probably instead of being 30-minute short film, it might be 45 minutes. So I just need to edit it.
Right. That one's going to get finished. So the one that became the priority, tell us a little bit about that one.
Well, that is the Greenwood Avenue project. It is based on the aftermath of the 1921 Tulsa Massacre. It is based on the fact that the Greenwood district rebuilt after the massacre. And it just shares about, you know, what they went through once they rebuilt and then it fell down again. And so it shares why it fell failed again. And so that was a story that I didn't even know about. I didn't even know about Black Wall Street, but because I was doing another project here in DeSoto, Texas, about my community and the importance of highlighting your community, someone in Tulsa said, hey, Mr. Terry Bachus said, hey, why don't you come do Black Wall Street? And I'm like, what is Black Wall Street? I didn't know nothing about it. And so my friend was like, maybe she was like, they taught us a little bit in school. And I said, well, maybe that's when I was asleep because it wasn't something I really knew about it. And so he invited me down to Tulsa. And at that time,
Actually, I'm going to stop you. I'm always interrupting people. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Before you go on, I just want to say, I just saw this video the other day. Who is that? This big actor, not Tom Cruise, the very nice guy, anyway, this big A-list actor. And he made a video and he was saying, why is it I didn't know about the Tulsa Massacre?
Oh, really?
That's crazy. Why would we not be taught our own American history? in school. I only just heard about Tom Hanks. That's who it was.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Tom Hanks. Actually, that might be a really cool. Anyway, you finished that film, but
Part two.
Part two. Hey, but I heard about it. I was in San Francisco, and I heard that there was this film was going to be shown called Black Wall Street. And I was like, oh, so I went, a fully Black audience at this big theater, and there was this guy, I've forgotten his name now, but he had produced the film, and we learned all about Black Wall Street. And I had never heard of it before, and I couldn't understand it. Well, that was maybe 8-10 years ago, something like that. And I know that film probably did something to, get the word out. And then I think that there's been a shift in our culture that I don't know, I'm just seeing, in fact, the reason I was running late today was because I was watching this piece on the news about a film that I think is coming out this week. I think it's on TV, that's about reparations and about this former slave who got reparations a couple of 100 years ago, and then what the impact of that has been. So I think that there's definitely, we're clear that we want more diversity. We want more stories of diversity. And when you said about, there's stories in our backyard, when I met you, I was like, well, I've never seen a story about Arkansas. I want to see a story about Arkansas. I want to see it. I want to know about Arkansas. I want to know what's going on. You know what I mean? So this thing about Black Wall Street, I think, especially because it was the 100-year anniversary a year ago, just over, I think there was more, publicity about it. So I feel as though there are so many lost and forgotten stories that need to be told.
Yeah. Yes. I feel that too. So
if you didn't know about it and I didn't know about it, more people need to know about it, right?
Right. And as I, this year or last year, when I took it out, and toured it through African American museums. And I went to different places, and I went to like Dalton, Alabama, and there was a group of people that came to see it. They were older people, and they had never heard of it. And so that's what I heard so many times when we took the history out, the film out, is I've never heard of this.
That's so interesting, because I was getting the feeling, oh, now everybody knows about it.
Yeah, it's still not.
Right. It's still not. Okay.
And even our kids, I mean, we're talking about older people. This history is still not being told to our kids so they can know the history.
Right. And so you also took a very particular approach with your film. So your film is not a history film. It's not the film I saw that was called Black Wall Street was a historical film about the massacre. Your film is not about the massacre actually at all. Tell us about your film.
Well, you can't do the rebuild without foreshadowing what this community was and what happened to this community. So we do bring in the massacre in the beginning to just kind of show you, set the stage. And so, but it's about these people, even though it was burnt, they went and got whatever they needed, train cart, or used bricks, whatever they needed to rebuild this community again, and it was thriving. I mean, it was, millionaire. I mean, millionaires as far as in that particular time point, being had a community of businesses on this street. And so, but this documentary kind of tells the story of those who were little kids at that time, and how it was being raised, going to these Black owned businesses on Greenwood, and how the saying that it takes a community to raise kids. And so when you get in trouble at the store, by the time you got home, your parents have known you got a whooping from your parents and the neighbor, and just this whole community that it took a village to raise a community, raise kids. And so you're going to hear those stories in this documentary. I actually interviewed over 50 some people, and that's my inexperience of being a movie producer. I just want to hear everybody's story. I'm just like, I need to hear yours. And here it is. I had 50 some people, and I'm like, how am I going to make this film where I can see these different perspectives of 50 some people? And so God just, showed me how to create these little mini movies within a movie. And that's how I was able to put a snippet of somebody saying something about their community in the documentary. So
Yes, and I think that I think, for example, if I think about that film that was about the massacre, Black Wall Street, it did show Black Wall Street, it did, but it was really about the massacre. And what you're saying, what your perspective in your film is more about, like, well, okay, so there was Black Wall Street, and there were all these very successful businesses. They were wiped out, they were destroyed. And how is this community that's in the same place, in the business, there are businesses today, and what are they doing, and how is it that they are thriving today?
yeah.
And so it was your film, to me, is very much about hope and about moving forward despite ridiculously bad odds and tragic treatment and all of that. But the people who are living there today, that was really inspiring to me, that 100 years ago there was this tragedy. You can't imagine anybody could survive that. You can't. You just see it in your head as this place that's been flattened. No, it is functioning today, and people are doing their thing. Tell us a little bit about some of the people you met.
So, right now, Tulsa is still very segregated. And so, you have little cliques of people kind of like there. And so the people I met, I got a chance to meet senators and but it was more about just everyday people that I got a chance to meet, because they are, I don't want to say cliquish, but Mr. Bacchus kind of protected me and who he allowed me to meet, because he's the one that brought everybody to me that was a part of the documentary. And so
he was local, right? He was local.
He was local. Terry was
right.
local.
So yeah,
and so he brought the people he knew.
Mm-hmm.
And
in the film world, that person in film is called a fixer.
Okay.
Like if you go, like, let's say you decide, oh, I'm going to go make a film in India, but you don't know anybody in India. You hire a fixer in India, and they know where you get your crew and so in a way Terry was your fixer, which is a funny kind of term. It sounds like something from the mafia, but
right.
But Terry was the local person, because you're not from Tulsa.
Right.
And I can imagine that people who have a history like that might be suspicious of people coming in from the outside.
Right. And so you need that person that's going to take you and introduce you to the different people. And when they did, they just kind of welcomed me in. And so when I go down there, those, I don't know any agenda or any precept of people. I just go and speak and, hi, how you doing? I don't know that you don't talk to this person. I don't know none of that. I'm just going to be who I am and speak to everybody with the same level of respect. And so they welcome me in, the people who came a part of the documentary, because there are people that did not want to be a part of it because I wasn't necessarily a known name, because there were so many different people who were doing documentaries. You had LeBron James, you had Russell Westbrook. There were so many. And so there were people that only want to be a part of those elite. And I'm not going to say that, because everybody have their own place. You know what I'm saying? And so there were people that were a part of those projects, but there were people that were a part of our project. And our project is just down home, good people that can remember stories to tell about a certain period of time. And so I just love the fact that they're so authentic in my documentary. You know, you can feel them and
Yes.
feel that particular time of
Yes.
space that they had.
And you have a lot of archival footage and archival photos in your film. Um, how were you able to access all of that? That stuff costs a fortune. How were you able to get hold of that?
And I'm so glad you brought that up because that's something that you don't hear a lot is the business side of film. And that is something that I am learning. Um, my editor, I had a great editor, Todd Roberts. He is someone that records everything in Oklahoma. So at the time, I tried to make sure I hired everyone in Oklahoma because Oklahoma had money that you could get planted into your project if you hired people in Oklahoma, if you spent a certain amount of money. And so that was my mindset, is hire everybody from Oklahoma. So Todd Roberts, he was a videographer and he recorded a lot of different things. And so he's the editor that brought in a lot of that footage. And now I'm finding out, like I think it's Harold Anderson. He recorded a lot of old footage, and it just for a 5-second clip, they want $750 for a 5-second clip. Now, Joanne,
We're not paying
you tell me
$750
about
for a
that.
5-second clip.
And I got about 10 of them in there. That's about
Yeah.
and so I'm like, okay, do I want to change the film or do I want to keep it in there because it
Okay.
became
Oh,
part of the film.
let's just make a distinction here because this is really important. So you're able to show the film at museums, at private screenings, and things like that. What we're talking about now with this issue of the costs is if you want to put it in distribution, right? That's what this is about. So when you put a film into distribution, now you have to achieve a different standard, and the distributor wants to know that everything in the film is cleared, that there's a clearance for everybody who appears. There's a clearance for every location. There's a clearance. Everything has to be kind of legally allowed. You know, one time I submitted a film to a distributor, and the my filmmakers always think that the distributor's going to say, "Oh, I love this film so much. I'm really looking forward to distribute." That's not how distributors talk. The distributor said, "Do you have permission to use the Jack Daniels bottle, and do you have permission to use that music at 17 minutes and 13 seconds?" I said, "I don't know about the Jack Daniels bottle, but I do know I got the music license. So, so yes, that's fine." And then the producer reached out to Jack Daniels and we got permission to use that bottle, or we'd have had to cut it out.
Right.
Right. Because we had to, the distributor that's how distributors look at films. They don't look at the films the way we look at films.
Right.
They look at films like, how can I get sued?
Yes.
That's how they look at a film. How can I get sued? Oh, you have this photo, you have this archival footage in here that you don't have the right to use, and then somebody's going to come and sue them. They're not going to sue you, they're going to sue them, right? So, and what are you working on now? Are you planning on switching out those pieces, or what do you want to do?
Well, if I was listening to you, I would probably start a crowdfunding campaign
Yes,
and ask people to
yes,
donate to help me
yes,
keep that footage in there. I want to keep it in there because then you have to look at possibly paying the editor to go and take it out. And
right.
so you got,
Either way,
if
either way,
you don't
either
have
way.
to pay.
Yeah,
You don't have to
yeah.
pay. So, but my business profession is taxes. So if I have a lot of tax clients that come and let me do their taxes, then I can pay for
Everybody go to Karen.
keep the
Everybody
footage
go to
in.
Karen. Emily, can you put Karen's tax? But what you're saying, Karen, is really true. I want you to raise the money. I don't want you spending your own money. And I know you're dedicated and you would. But when you were talking earlier about this whole community thing, I don't know if you've ever seen where the 1619 project is. But anyway, so I have a friend who does a thing. He says it's like, if you remember CD-ROMs from decades ago, CD-ROMs, you would get a CD and it would you would be able to see a film, but then you would maybe see the director talking about the film, and you could have photos from when they were shooting, and you could see stories about it. So now he has all of that online, and he is the one responsible for having the 1619 project online. And it's costly. It costs about $25,000. But imagine if, like, the museum there in Tulsa or another museum could have access to the full interviews with all of your people, right? And articles and other research, and that there would be a whole thing. I know you have a website, we've posted in the chat, but imagine if people could access all of this. But it all costs money. And fundraising is a challenge. But what about in the future? What other films are you imagining getting into some trouble?
Um,
Where is God pointing you next? Let's put it that way, because I know that's how you roll.
yeah. So my very first project, I actually need to finish it, and that is based on my community. It was Path to the Draft, 7 DeSoto U Players, and that was 9 different films, and I probably have completed 2. So I actually just want to focus in on finishing some stuff,
Yes. So Path to
finishing.
the Draft, is it ultimately going to be 7 how many minute pieces?
It is actually 7. It's a video for each player, so that's 7
Right.
videos.
Right.
And then I did a movie of putting it all together into one movie, taking clips of the 7. So that was one. So that would be 8 different films.
But
Focused
the 7 for each one of the players, how many minutes is that?
When I start, okay, we talked about the beginning of my filming career. So I have 2 of them that's an hour long each.
An
But
hour. Okay.
so the other ones I'm gonna probably be shorter, more like a short film. But
Yeah.
the 2 that are long, they had a lot of things going on in their lives, and so. But after that, we had another 7 coming from our community that became eligible for draft, and I started that.
Wow.
So I just really, this community thing just really,
Wow.
it's embedded in me. I don't know how to get rid of it.
Well, but you happen to come from a community that's doing crazy, ridiculous, amazing things. I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Why do you have so many kids who end up eligible for the draft? What is
Right.
that about? That's really what your story is, right? What's that about?
Well, mine is the fact that they graduate college. And coming from
Mm,
our community, we have so many, usually you think athletes are done jocks or whatever,
mm,
but our athletes are graduating college. They're setting an example for other kids that, okay, you can
mm.
play sports, but accomplish your business in the classroom first. And so that's kind of the story that I'm
Right.
trying to highlight. And then just showing sometimes your dreams change. So not all of them
Yeah.
got drafted. I want to show that it's okay to switch. One of them ended up working at the post office. So he's all about investing and things, letting the kids know it's okay to change direction, even though you have a path that you started on. So
Right. Right. And what other projects are you working on?
I have a sports mom talk. Well, I'm changing it. I have a sports talk show, and I'm in the Dallas Maverick cohort program. And so this weekend I get to pitch about the talk show, and possibly if I get selected, I could possibly pitch it to Mark Cuban. And so I
Ah,
am working on doing my 1 to 2 minute pitch. I'm at 3 minutes. I'm gonna have to cut it down.
you
Okay.
want to pitch? You want to pitch now? Let's pitch to us. Let's
Oh
pretend we're
no,
all investors.
no.
Come on, come on. I want to hear it.
Oh, okay. Hi, my name is Karen Reese, and I am the visionary founder of Can We Talk Sports. It is a groundbreaking sports commentator talk show, and it is tailored towards see
No,
Pro
no, no, it's good.
Soul, which is parents of student athletes. And see, I forgot
Oh,
now.
that was good. But the thing about the show that I think is so fantastic is also what you were saying about Path to the Draft. You're talking about moms of young people who are excelling, and you're talking about this whole arena that I've never heard anybody talk about. Never. About what is it like to be a parent of a kid who's on that path? How do you motivate them to also be interested in school as well as in sports? What do moms do who have those kids? How can we help the kids? How can we help the moms? I just think it's fantastic, and I think it's completely unique.
Yeah, I mean, we need to hear the voice of parents, and that's my passion because I did when I was a part of the Booster Club, and my son was trying to get a scholarship. There was no parents that were coming back to tell us, okay, this is what you do when you go to college. You got to watch out for groupies. You got to watch out for this. Nobody was coming back and sharing that information,
Wow.
and so most parents are hidden in groups because they don't want to share their voices because they're fearful that their kids won't get playing time and things like that.
Mm,
And so we
mm,
need to, tell parents that
yes.
voice is important. They do need to share their story, whether their story are bad or good, it's still their story, and their story can help somebody else because there's power in your story. And we can't hear from nobody else but them. And so, Can We Talk Sports is going to give them that platform to come in to educate, to inform other parents on how to succeed in the road of sports. And we're creating the first biggest business alliance in sports history, and that is parents uh, teaching other parents, athletes teaching other athletes, professional teaching other professional. This one-stop shop for sports parents. That's it.
The one little tweak I would make, you're an amazing pitcher now, which given when I first met you is a miracle. Really, it's an amazing, beautiful, beautiful. But the one little change I would put is I would add in right at the beginning, when I was a parent of a superbly successful student athlete, I had no idea. Nobody was telling me what it was going to be like to deal with groupies and to deal with this and whatever all the things are.
Yeah,
And so I have created Could
yeah,
We Talk Sports? I think that would really help lead us in the fact that that is your experience, and what you found was that there wasn't anybody who warned you about
right.
everything you
The
were going to have to deal
information
with.
was scarce, and there
Yes,
was untold stories from parents, and that is a part of my pitch. I just got it out of order. I ain't got, so I'm continuing practicing on it.
that's right. That's right. That's what you have to do. That's what you have to do.
Yeah.
Um, let's see if anybody has a question. Otherwise, I will. Who would like to ask a question? Raise your hand. I see Jamila. I see Lawanda. I see Lloyd. All right, I'm going to keep going. So have we actually mentioned all your projects, or do you have any more hidden?
Go ahead, don't do me like that. Uh, yeah, with all, see, these are all passion projects. And so even with beside my passion project, I do taxes and I sell tax software. So I'm trying to get the resources to take care of itself so I can do the things that I'm more passionate about. And eventually I want to go to Alaska. I want to film in Alaska. I want to
Oh,
show
I missed that. I missed that. My video cut out. Go to where?
Alaska.
Oh, okay. Why do you want
Yeah,
to go to Alaska?
because I can imagine that there's a ghetto in Alaska. And I'm just like, there's a
Oh,
ghetto in Alaska? And I'm like, I have a cousin that lived there and they're in the army. And I'm like, okay, once you get out of the army, why are you not moving from Alaska? It's too cold over there. And so they're thinking about buying a house. And I'm like, okay, I need to come to Alaska. I need to see the moose. I need to see
yes,
Santa Claus.
yes.
I want to show people through my eyes of what it is to visit Alaska and what they do when it's cold. And I
You're
just
so funny. You're so funny because when COVID hit and I was living in San Francisco, I ended up going and living, not with, but near my best friend in Missoula, Montana. And I'm a Caribbean girl through and through. But I said, well, how long is it before it's going to snow? And he said, a month. And I said, okay, well, I'll come stay a month, And I ended up staying 17 months and I absolutely fell in love with Montana.
really.
And yes, and I, whenever I think about Montana, I see the snow and it's so beautiful and it's just mind-blowingly gorgeous. And I lived in a small town for the first time in my life. I never thought I would like to live in a small town, but I loved that. I loved everything about it.
Yeah.
And it was fun. It was odd to be in, it wasn't that it wasn't diverse. There were not very many people of African descent there, but Native Americans, my favorite place that I would go, I was just telling somebody this morning, was called the Nine Pipes Museum. There's a museum and a hotel and a restaurant. And I would go there and stay there for a couple of days and work on stuff. And it was wonderful to be around that much Native American culture, which is not something I had really spent much time with. But the nature is just so, wow, magnificent, So that might be some of what you find when you go
Yeah.
there. And I
Yeah.
never felt cold in Montana.
Really.
Yeah, because you put your thermal underwear on in September and you don't take it off until May.
Right. Right. See, I want to go see the Eskimos. I want to
Yes,
see it all. Have
yes,
some
yes, yes.
true salmon, Alaskan salmon. I want to go do it all.
A black woman in Alaska. I love it. It's
Right.
yeah. It's funny. There was very much a culture in Montana of you do you. It was very much that, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
There was this kind of you do your own thing, I'll do my thing. People don't tell each other what to do. That was nice. So there could be other things about Alaska that are not what you expect. Not nothing to do maybe. And another thing about being in that snow and being in that cold is that it used to be historically in America, if you stole someone's horse, that was a hanging offense
Right.
because you were basically killing them.
Mm. Wow.
If you didn't have a horse. And in places with that much snow and that much cold, you know, people have to help each other because that you can die in that.
Yeah. Yeah. For
So
real.
people are very neighborly and very helpful, and things like that. I
That's
found up
good.
there.
That's a very good point because I could see how community works in an environment like that. How do community work? So
Yes.
community works different in different places. So
Yes.
so you definitely, and that's a good point. How does you just gave me my pitch, my title for Alaska.
That's all right. We're making movies over here. We're making
Right.
movies. And I don't think anyone has a question, but I don't want to silence you all. Just Jamila, come on, say hi to Karen. Lovely to see you. Jamila's working on a documentary, so
Okay.
yes. Oh, we can't hear you, Jamila. Oh, no, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. What a shame. Jamila's making
Can you
a
hear me
document.
now?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
my mic was muted. I'm sorry. Oh, it's such a pleasure to meet you and to hear your story and part of the process. There was two things that came to mind when you were talking about the Greenwood Project and talking about telling the stories of the people that survived. What came to mind was also, how are you, in part of that survival, how are you telling the story of overcoming the trauma of the experience as a key part to that drive to survive? So yeah.
That's a good question. And you know, the reason why we called it the Greenwood Avenue Project is because I could see that there were so many more films that have voices that could share their story other than this first one. So this was just the first one, just hearing the voices of this community. I could see, you know, later on finding out who who is the savior of that community that can rally that community together in order for it to be this community to be healed, because I don't think it's healed yet. And so I think that that's probably a whole nother film to bring that part out as far as how this community, what can this community do to heal and to continue to move forward. Right now, there's still a lot of separate things going on and leadership and things like that. And so I think that story is yet to be told.
Because when I'm listening to the story, and I did see the documentary, because the communities of Black and Brown people, we're living under generational trauma. And so your story, in a sense, I mean, we, like my community, they may not have bombed me out, but my people are still living in trauma. And so I see your story as a catalyst to help them, you know, to keeping that hope alive, to keeping that spirit that says, regardless. I mean, we're living in a strange time. I mean, if Trump gets back in, he would like to get rid of all of us or put us back in our place. So we're not in this kumbaya world yet, you know. And so I think it's so important as your story, because it helps us realize that no matter how oppressed, how much we are under siege, that we can still survive. And I think that, and we can still survive and grow and develop.
The resilience of people. And you know, the one thing that we don't even, as far as Black people, focus on is mental health or getting the help we need. And
Right.
so here we're talking about a community that needs some type of therapy or help to help them be able to mentally move forward and heal from that trauma, because they are still um now they're experiencing the history of people coming and taking their history and profiting off of it. And that was one of my thing about this film. Somebody told me that somebody made films from them and they would go and make money and they never gave back anything to the community. And so one thing that I have tried to do with this document, anything that I make, I made sure everybody that was in the film had their own personal movie poster that they could show. Anything that is profit off of this film, we are going to go back and give it to those people that are a part of this documentary and try to create some type of event or some type of fund or something like that to help with this community, because people are constantly taking, and nobody is going back to impart into this community in forms of helping them heal, because
There's a
this
couple.
was
There's a couple of
businesses
things.
that are gone.
There's a couple of things I think about, Jamila, what you're saying, which is that the third thing is that now there's interest in what is the trauma to documentary filmmakers working on these stories and telling these stories. That's something of interest. Secondly, I think that the fact that we can have a conversation about, well, how do we deal with the trauma of something like that? That conversation didn't exist 10 years ago.
Right.
It didn't exist. And so I think a lot of what I see with Karen's storytelling is that Karen, when you say a story from my backyard, I hear that is how telling the stories is how we heal from the trauma. Telling the stories at all, seeing myself, seeing my ancestors on film. There's something so empowering about that. And Karen and I've talked about this for hours on end, but it's like so empowering to see yourself on film. And so when we're from communities that have experienced those levels of trauma, just having the capacity to see your story and to tell your story is so much the healing process.
Yeah, that's good.
Now, my second question was about the Tulsa. That's the Parents of Student Athletes. Is that just a local initiative, or are you going to work with parents throughout the country?
Yes, so I do want to work with parents throughout the country. And that's why I said it's the biggest business alliance, because I don't necessarily know everything, but there are parents, there are athletes and professionals that are doing things. They're selling books, they're teaching seminars. So what if we came together, and when we did need to do a seminar, I could partner with other people who are already doing it to come in and teach those particular parts. And so that's the thing that I'm trying to put together to be able to do that. Because right now we're scattered and there's a lot of things that's going on with sports, and we need to have the parents' voice, because there are decisions being made without parents.
Right.
I think this is such a strong thing. I really hope you do well with your pitch. And all I can say is that your pitching is great. I know you said, oh, I didn't get it right or whatever, but you're really, really good at pitching. Oops, I did the wrong thing there. So
I'm gonna send to you. I recorded it with my voice. I'm gonna send it to you so you can critique.
I will.
I know you will.
I'm not into critique. I'm into feedback. I'm always like, well, how do we make this better? I'm sure it can be better. It might be A+ already, but we could probably make it better, but you really do pitch well. And, I hope that somewhere along the lane, whether it's Mark Cuban but some sports, because they make plenty money, so there's money around. So, getting involved in something like this, I really hope that happens. That's a great project. Well, Karen, thank you so much. I always enjoy so much spending time with you. So I'm really grateful.
Joanne, I just have one thing that I failed to mention is that with the documentary Greenwood Avenue Project, we created a curriculum that can go along with the film. And so when it goes into schools, it will help to be a teaching tool for teachers to teach about this history.
Yes, the Greenwood Avenue one. That's what you're working on now, getting it in schools?
Yeah.
Oh, look.
Yeah. Well,
LaWanda raised her hand.
It accessible.
That's fantastic. Let's see. LaWanda wanted to say something. LaWanda, come on in.
She's muted.
Hi, I just wanted to say I've been friends with Karen for about 30 years, and I've watched her journey, her community journey. We still have a story to tell from when she first came to California. She hasn't got that one going yet, but she still have that story yet to tell. She missed that one.
Add it to your list, Karen. Add it to your list.
Yeah, that's gonna be a movie, Girlfriend.
Okay, all right.
Thank you for putting her out there, LaWanda. Thanks for that. All right. Thank you, Karen, so much. And yes, it's just always such a pleasure, and it's great to watch your progress, as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, and I really, really want to see this sports piece go forward, you know? So definitely thank you very much. And goodbye, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thanks for being here. And don't forget, go to Karen, get your taxes. All right. Bye, everybody. We put your website in the mail in the chat. So
Yeah,
all
Okay.
right. Bye, everybody.
we save it.